While air traffic had remained curtailed in most of the world over the summer 2021 season, taxiing times at airports have not, for the most part, as they've shifted significantly since before the pandemic. Indeed, every 6 months, Eurocontrol releases statistics over just how long it takes to get from the gate to the runway at airports all over the world. Follow along in this video to see which ones top the list. If you've ever landed at Amsterdam Schiphol's Poldebaan runway, you know that the taxiing time adds an additional 15 minutes or so to your overall flight time. The runway is the hub's 6th and is located 5 kilometers away from the main terminal building. As a result, Poldebaan even has its own control tower. When measuring taxi times, more things than the distance to the runway impact the result. For various reasons, queues often form with lines of aircraft waiting for their turn for takeoff. This phenomenon might be absent at airports such as Oslo Gardermoen or, say, Bradley International. However, taxi times add up in busier locations despite the runway being nowhere near as far away from the terminal as Schiphol's Poldebaan. The European Organisation for the Safety of Air Navigation, commonly known as Eurocontrol, publishes statistics over taxi-in and taxi-out times at airports across the world twice per year, once for each IATA season. When looking at the data for AMS Amsterdam Schiphol, it is nowhere near other airports across the globe when it comes to reaching the runway. Despite the Poldebaan trek, passengers departing Amsterdam can currently expect to spend on average 12.7 minutes taxiing from the gate. Before we dive into the figures, we should mention that when comparing them to data from the winter season of 2019-2020, nearly all numbers drop across the board. However, rankings remain similar. Meanwhile, the current number 1 airport used to be number 2, although when corrected for the drop in traffic in the first few months of 2020, we may have found it would have claimed first. In order not to spoil the statistic fun, we'll reveal the previous order at the end of the video. At the top of the lengthiest taxi times sits Chinese airports serving the megapolises of Beijing and Shanghai. The latter's Pudong PVG takes the cake with a whopping 26.4 minutes on average. That is close to an extra half hour waiting for the plane to get its turn on one of the airport's 4 operational runways. Beijing Capital International Airport, or PEK, is not far behind, as taxiing out there will add on average 21.6 minutes to the journey. However, closer to Shanghai Pudong is Mexico City. Benito Juarez International Airport, or MEX, is one of the highest in the world at an elevation of 7,342 feet, or 2,238 meters above sea level. It also has the current second longest taxi out time of any airport in the world, clocking in at 25.4 minutes on average. Other Mexican airports such as Cancun International, or CUN, and Guadalajara, or GDL, also come in at above 16 minutes. Meanwhile, Costa Rica's San Jose International Airport, or SJO, is slightly higher at 18.5 minutes. Rio de Janeiro International, or GIG, and Sao Paulo's Guarulhos, or GRU, in Brazil have 19.5 and 16.2 minutes respectively. There are a few more airports where the time between the gate and takeoff goes above the 20-minute mark. Almost all of them can be found in the Americas. Bogotá International, or BOG, in Colombia comes in at 21.8 minutes. Meanwhile, Chile's Santiago Airport, or SCL, or Comodoro Arturo Merino Benítez International Airport, as is its full name, adds an average of 20.9 minutes to taxiing. SCL also has 2 runways. Heading further north, New York JFK with 4 runways grabs the top spot in the US. The Queens Airport has an average taxi-out time of 22.8 minutes. This puts it higher on the list than Newark Liberty, or EWR, which comes in with a comparatively modest 18.8 minutes. However, Philadelphia PHL is not far behind at 22.5 minutes. Washington Dulles International Airport, or IAD, comes in a close third with an average of 21.9 minutes. Meanwhile, Chicago O'Hare, or ORD, is also in the above 20 club with an average of 21.6 minutes. O'Hare shares the fourth spot in the US with Charlotte Douglas International, or CLT. Right behind them is San Francisco International, or SFO, with 21.1, Miami International, or MIA, at 20.8, and Dallas-Fort Worth, or DFW, at 19.7. Closing out the list for US airports, Houston's George Bush Intercontinental, or IAH, sits at 18.9, while Denver International, or DEN, has a time of 18.8 minutes. Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson, or ATL, and Los Angeles International, or LAX, both come in at 17.2. North of the border in Canada, Vancouver International Airport, or YVR, has an average of 18.5 minutes of taxi out time, whereas Toronto Pearson International Airport, or YYZ, has 17. Pivoting back to Asia, we find a few more heavy hitters. Taxiing out from one of Delhi Indira Gandhi International Airport's 3 terminals to one of its 2 runways takes on average 20.9 minutes. Meanwhile, the same procedure in Bangalore, or BLR, takes 18.6 minutes, and at Mumbai International Airport, or BOM, 16.9, which is roughly the same time as both Kuala Lumpur KUL and Singapore Changi, or SIN. Manila, or MNL, clocks in at 19.2 minutes. Taxiing at Tokyo Haneda, or HAN, is also not done in a flash, as it takes an average of 19.8 minutes. At Tokyo Narita, or NRT, the figure is down to 17.2 minutes, although this is perhaps not enough to warrant picking one over the other when travelling out of Tokyo. Seoul Incheon, or ICN, is nearly as efficient as Narita at 17.1 minutes, whereas the average taxiing out time in Hong Kong is 17.9 minutes. In the Gulf region, the airports with the longest taxi times are Riyadh King Khalid, or RUH, Doha International, or DOH, Dubai International, DXB, and Kuwait International, KWI. All of these airports sit somewhere on a scale between 17.2 and 16.2 minutes. Moving north, taxiing from the gate at Moscow's 3 largest airports, Sheremetyevo, or SVO, Domodedovo, DME, and Vnukovo, VKO, takes 15.8, 17.1, and 16.4 minutes on average, respectively. Meanwhile, Istanbul's Sabiha Gökçen, or SAW, comes in at 16.9, and the new Istanbul Airport, or IST, at 15.4. One would imagine that the busiest airports in Europe would have figures similar to those across the globe. However, at least during the past summer season, Paris Charles de Gaulle, or CDG, saw average taxiing times of 14.7 minutes and Frankfurt only 12.6. Interestingly, figures were not much higher pre-pandemic. Africa has only one airport where taxiing takes over 17 minutes, and that is Brazzaville's Maya Maya Airport, or BZV. Johannesburg OR Tambo International Airport, the busiest on the continent, sits at 16.7 minutes. Nigeria's 2 main airports in Abuja, or ABV, and Lagos, or LOS, come in at 16.5 and 16.3 respectively, whereas taxiing out at Addis Ababa's Bolé International, or ADD, in Ethiopia takes on average 16.4 minutes. Taxi times are not just a matter of passenger comfort. Longer time between the gate and takeoff also adds significantly to an airline's fuel consumption. This increases both the financial burden and environmental impact. During the pre-pandemic winter season of 2019-2020, taxiing times were on average higher. At the time, Delhi topped the list with just over 28 minutes, while Shanghai sat at 26.3. Meanwhile, all major Canadian airports were over 20 minutes, with Montreal Trudeau International Airport reaching 25.8. As traffic hopefully picks up following the crisis, airports would do well to see if there are means of increasing operational efficiency and lowering taxi times. Not only with this lower overall fuel consumption, but you'd probably have much happier passengers, especially when it comes to taxiing to the gate after landing. How many of these airports have you flown out of, and what is the longest time you spent taxiing? Leave a comment and let us know. Simple Flying publishes over 150 articles every week. If you're looking for the latest aviation news and insights, visit simpleflying.com.